Hi, Moni.
Hi, how are you doing?
Indeed. I don't think no, only Moni I've ever known was the Moni in the middle, the lady.
That's usually when some people are like, how do you pronounce your name? I try to tell them that, and depending on their age, either they're like, yeah, or they're like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Moni in the middle. That's the only other one I've known. So we got a literary one and we got a musical one. The one that used to hang out, if nobody knows what that is, she used to hang out with Queen Latifah. That was one of her proteges. So I want to turn this over to Christine Pauls. She is your interviewer for this
Okay.
segment.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Cavalcade. I have the honor to introduce and speak with Moni Boyce, an award winning author of contemporary and paranormal romances. I'm going to read a little bit of her bio. She is also a filmmaker and a poet. After spending the past 15 years working in the film industry, she now creates characters and words of her own. She has also ghost written romances. Excuse me. She has also written ghost novellas and novels. Moni lives a bit of a nomadic life, but considers Los Angeles home. Welcome, Moni. It's
Hi,
nice to
thank you,
meet you.
Christine. Nice to meet you too.
Yeah. Um, so I guess we're going to be chatting with you today, and if you'd like, you could also read a little bit of your work. Um, So if you could just tell us a little bit more about your film career before you got into writing.
Oh, okay. Well, I went to USC, University of Southern California, for film school. Did the whole assistant thing and then got into producing like short films and films of my own. I loved working in film. That's still probably one of my first loves, but as anybody who's ever worked in that kind of environment, whether it's movies or music, you know that it's usually long hours, long days, your life's kind of not your own. Usually I was working anywhere from 16, 18-hour days, 5 to 6 days a week, for months at a time. And then usually I would take like a month-long break and go travel because traveling is like one of my other passions. But after you do that for a long period of time, you get a little burned out. So for me, it was like I got the opportunity to go travel full time in 2016 and sold everything I owned and left the US for a year and just like traveled around. So it was a lot of fun. I still want to go back into filmmaking at some point, but I'm really having a lot of fun just like writing and creating stories right now.
I was looking at one of the books I pulled down because when I do start reading your work, I'm going to pick up some of these books. The Awakened is part of a series, correct?
Yes, that is the first paranormal series that I wrote. It's a 4-book series. Willow Stevens, the female lead character, she is an oracle or the only oracle in the story. Her lineage, the line of women in her family have all been oracles, and their ancestry goes all the way back to the Oracle of Delphi in Greece. So I like to use, especially in paranormal, I like to still try to relate my mythology that I create back to history. So each of kind of like the witch covens kind of have some tie back to a witch that you would be able to, look up historically. So one of the other witches, she's tied back to Tituba that you see pop up in like the Scarlet Letter and also the Crucible and things like that. She was a real historical figure as opposed to many of the other figures in lots of those stories that were fictional.
Okay. So, when writing, do you um, use your film background in order to create your stories?
Oh yes. For most people, if you read the full series, the Oracle Chronicles, it's going to feel like you're watching a TV show. I I love making films and TV, and so I also love watching it. So a lot of what I write a lot of times feels like you're in a movie, just because I think very visually when I'm writing. So everything is like literally going on as I'm writing it. So it is, I try to make it feel very much like that. So I do pull a lot from my film background.
So how many books do you have to date? And what
So
is your
far,
latest release?
because when I first got into writing, I started out as a ghostwriter. So for 2 years, I just wrote for other people and that kind of thing. And it wasn't beginning of 2019 is when I put out my first book. So for me right now,
Okay.
it'll be 7 in about a week, but by the end of the year, I'll have 10 books out total because I have a lot more coming out by the end of the year.
What was your debut?
Redemption of the Heart. That's the one that I won
What was-
awards for, was Redemption of the Heart.
And what's that
Okay.
about?
So Redemption of the Heart is about this couple that essentially they have both been through a lot. He's a widower. She has been somebody that came up in like the foster care system and has had like a really hard life. And she is about to start this new beginning. I don't want to give too much away or whatever, but because it's not like your typical meet cute. It has some pretty heavy themes running through it, but she's getting out of jail for a crime that she committed. And she ends up working at his restaurant, and that's how they meet and kind of fall in love, although they try to resist each other quite a bit because for him, it's like he didn't expect to be in a relationship again after, losing his wife. And she's trying to start a new path and really just doesn't want to deal with men right now. But of course, life has other plans. But writing that book, it came about, I was actually still working in the film industry, and I would come home at like 1 o'clock in the morning after a really long day and like write a chapter at a time. And there was this website where a lot of women of color were posting their original stories and getting critiques and feedback, and people were reading. And so I started posting on there a little bit at a time. It was Valent Chamber, I believe. And like over the course of a year, I would just like do that. And before I knew it, I had this book. And so I ended up sitting on it for a while because at the time I had no plans to publish. And then it wasn't, like I said, until about 2018, I was like, I could actually self-publish this book. And then started like planning and learning more about publishing and marketing online and that kind of thing. And so that's how Redemption of the Heart came to be. And part of it too, because there's really big themes of like forgiveness, I was dealing with a little bit of that in my own life. And so I think it was a way for me to kind of deal with my own issues of forgiveness while I was writing that.
That's wonderful. So I'm going to also get some help from the tribe. If you have any questions for Moni, if anybody has any questions, readers, if you have any questions, you could drop those in the chat room. I'm kind of scanning through all the books that you have. So I'm gonna, okay, tribe, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hey, Moni, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So with your background, you clearly have a lot to pull from by way of weaving stories and tales and characters and such. Tell us a little bit about your creative process.
So when I first started, I was a big pantser. Like I would be like, usually the characters come to me first. So usually I would kind of start writing based on like the characters and how I was seeing and feeling like the storyline going. Now that's kind of switched a little bit. I've become a little bit more of a plotter. I'm not like let me do a whole like 20-page outline type of plotter, but I definitely like, especially once I started writing paranormal, there to me was just no way to pants because I knew I was doing the series and I knew I needed to know where the characters were going. So so the process shifts a little bit depending on whether I'm writing paranormal or contemporary. If I'm writing paranormal, I do all the world building first. I have to sit down and do all of that first and then start planning out from book 1 to book whatever is in the series, and at least have some loose idea of all of the big plot points that need to happen in each of those to get me to where I'm going. I don't like to overplan too much because I feel like that stifles me. So for me, it's like, okay, know all the major points and then let everything else kind of like come. And so with contemporary, I do kind of like a little bit of chapter outlining. It's like I need to know where all the different segments I need to hit in each one, because I write dual POV a lot of times. So at least if I know what each character is supposed to like go through in each chapter, then I can start writing.
Moni, Olivia gained to know, can you share with us the name of a movie that you worked on?
So for me, I did a lot of independent film, like Unspeakable was a film that I produced that I think it was available on Amazon, through Amazon for a while, and on Netflix. I think the deal with, because I mean, that was back in like 2007 when we sold that one. So the time, I think right now it's on Amazon. I don't think it's still on Netflix. The other one, Everything Will Happen Before You Die, that one wasn't really, and that's the thing about film, it's like you get some projects that are like your babies and other ones that are just like, pay me my money and let me be on my way. And Everything Will Happen Before You Die was one of those movies that I did that was purely for the money. And I think that one's available on Amazon. I'm not sure if that one's available on Netflix or not. I have to look. Some of these, like, it's been, like I said, a minute. Producing takes a long time because you're usually like looking for money. And then filming can take anywhere, depending on the type of film, like 2 to 3 months on a low end. And usually a lot longer than that. Like, obviously, if you're making something like Avengers, you're going to be like filming sometimes as long as a year if you're filming those films back to back. And then post-production can take even longer if you're dealing with effects and those types of things. So yeah, so, you know, a movie that you're seeing today could have been made like 2 years ago at this point, because it's a process. But those are films that I made and produced myself. When I was still an assistant, I worked on the HBO show Carnival back in the day as an assistant. But for me, it was more about like making my own movies, because that's the thing, the producer gets to call the shots. You at the end of the day are the one that, like, you know, you start the ball rolling from finding the perfect script, casting, you know, staffing your crew, seeing the film through production, shepherding it through the post process and making sure the director's getting what they want, all the way till you see it, you know, being premiered or getting distributed and picked up. So usually that's by way of going through the film festival circuit, or, you know, if you can get directly to a studio or another film company that has the ability to put the film out. So it is a process. It's very like tedious, and you really got to love it, which I did that for 15 years. That was my life. But like I said, eventually I want to get back into it, but I'm 40. And so for me, I was just like, I kind of want my life back a little bit.
There's a question in the chat room from Deanna McNeil that says, can you tell us about upcoming collaboration with other romance paranormal authors?
Okay, well, I'm actually doing a reverse harem paranormal fairy tale one that I have coming out later this year. We haven't started marketing for that one just yet. We just got the book cover back. So I have that one that I'm collaborating with Shay August and Nikki Clark on. And then Aaron St. Charles and I are working on, it's not technically paranormal because it's more sci-fi romance, but we're collaborating on a sci-fi romance. And then I have a Wolf Shifter project that I just stepped into that will be a series amongst about 12 different authors. So it'll all be within the same world, but all of our stories will be standalone stories. So there's lots of paranormal happening in 2021.
What else is in
So
the chat?
for a new reader, where would you recommend that someone start reading your work?
I usually say start with Redemption of the Heart. That one has been, for a lot of people, like, they absolutely love that story in that book. I still get a lot of people now, even though that book's now like 2 years old, that just really, that story really resonates with them for whatever reason. And that's still, I think, one that's kind of still close to my heart just because of the place where I was coming from when I wrote it. So I usually tell people start with that one if you really want to get a sense of, like, I guess you could say, the characters and that kind of thing that I write. You know, and that also, I will say that too depends on if you're more of a paranormal or a contemporary, since I write between both. But usually I tell people start with Redemption of the Heart. It's my first one, and I think it, I really enjoy that story in the way that I told it. Like, yes, technically probably could some things be different. Of course, it's my first book, but just overall as a story, it's still one that I really enjoy. Even sometimes I find myself like, oh, I just want to go back and like read Alex and Gemma a little bit. Because you kind of fall in love with your characters and you almost wonder like, what would they be doing now if they were real?
I think there's a question in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Pat O'George. Miss Pat, do you have a question?
Well, I did, but I think she kind of answered it. But another aspect to, are there any other producers that you have worked with that you would go back to and ask to help you with any of your books? Or would you just rather just do the whole thing by yourself?
No, I would actually, there are definitely people, I didn't get a chance to work with them because they kind of came on the scene, I guess you could say, after I had kind of stepped away to go travel. But like, for instance, Misha Green, who's show running Lovecraft Country right now, is a really good one. She also did Underground. She is phenomenal, I think, as a showrunner, and she's a Black woman, which is awesome because she's making some awesome programs right now. Obviously Lena Waithe, who did Shy, you know, I would love to obviously work with, you know, a woman and a woman of color. So that would be phenomenal. Right now, there are two women that are, I mean, obviously I love Shonda and she went to my alma mater. So that would just be like amazing if that happened. And now that she has like her Netflix deal, even better. But definitely I'd say it's between Misha Green and Lena Waithe, because like I said, they're just making some really amazing stories right now that need to be told. And I love that they're putting, you know, more Black faces at the forefront of their work.
That's an awesome answer. I kind of expected you to say someone like Michael Schultz. Or
no, I mean, you know, here's the thing. I've worked with enough white men. I mean, Hollywood's filled with them.
Michael has blue eyes, but you know he's one of us, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. I apologize. For me, it's like, I'd rather see a woman, my story center on women. You know, it's like, yes, it's a love story, but it's like, I feel like, and not to say that all men directors or showrunners get it wrong per se, but I feel like sometimes we still tell our stories a little differently than through a male lens. So I would prefer that a woman directs or produces the piece.
Well, I guess I threw his name out because he's him and David Picker, you know, the only two guys.
Yes, David Picker does. Now, I will say, if I was going to like not choose a woman, David Picker would be somebody I would choose, because I think he's another one that is making phenomenal content right now. And I definitely would not say no to him.
Well, I was dumb enough to say no.
Oh, really?
Yeah, one of my regrets, him and Michael Schultz, because I was stupid enough to think that they were going to steal my idea. They took me out to dinner, the whole thing, you know, but that's for another show. But if I ever had the chance again.
Yes, we'll have to talk more.
I wanted to state that you brought up the name of something I haven't heard in a while, but Olivia Games also said it in the chat here. Carnival?
Yes, that was one of my last, as an assistant. I was a producer's assistant. And I have to say, and I was on a lot of sets. One of the other jobs I also had while I was still working in Hollywood is I used to work for Getty Images. So I ended up at a lot of the Grammys, the Emmys, the Golden Globes, all of that, like usually in the press room. And I have to say, out of all of the different instances of being like, whether on a set or just at different award shows and that kind of thing, Carnival was probably one of my favorite experiences, because, you know, you have like hundreds, if not like, depending on the size, up to like 1,000 different people working on a TV show or a movie. And that was one of the best crews and best cast in terms of just getting along, the camaraderie. Like, we had a lot of fun making this. We were out like, if you're from California, you kind of know, out like near Six Flags is where we filmed. So it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that show, and I hate, you know, it was getting like accolades, but it was very expensive to shoot because it was a period piece, since it took place in like the 1940s or so. And so that was one of the reasons that HBO shut it down, was that it was too expensive. It wasn't that it was bad, or it wasn't like, because I think the second year, because I only had 2 seasons, by that second year we were they were getting nominated for awards, but it was just getting too costly, because around that time I think they were also filming Rome. HBO was filming that, which got shut down for the same reason that it was too expensive.
That was a good show too.
Yeah, because I could have gone on to Big Love, but I would have had to like uproot myself and go to Utah. And I was like, I ain't moving to Utah. So I was like, deuces, I went to another job. But yeah, so like I said, a really good experience, a great show. Those actors were amazing. Usually you hear like rumors, you deal with people and you're like, they were a nightmare. But the actors on that show were all like a great group of people to work with.
Indeed, indeed.
Let's see, I see one question. Oh, somebody, I'm sorry. I'm seeing some of the questions now too, just really quickly. I know my time's kind of coming up. Redemption of the Heart, what is the storyline? I don't know if this person came in after I kind of talked about it. So essentially she is down on her luck, is getting out of jail. He's a widower who runs a restaurant and she ends up working for him and they fall in love, but there is something that ties them together that you will realize through reading the story. It kind of comes out at the beginning, but the tension happens because you're waiting for them to find out that they're connected to each other. But it's a love story, but it does, like I said, have some heavier themes. It's not like, I don't typically write like meet cute, like rom-com type things. So usually the things, now I will say the Love Delayed in Dublin one that I just recently wrote is a little bit like lighter, I guess you could say. But Redemption of the Heart is definitely dealing with some heavier themes. And I'm sorry, I just saw this. What challenges have you found being a Black author writing paranormal? I don't think it's that much different than writing in contemporary. I mean, you basically deal a lot with whether the readers want to read your story. I mean, I tend to, like, for instance, you saw the cover of Awakened when they put it up on the screen. It has a Black woman on the first book only has the Black woman on the cover. The other, like, I write interracial, so the other covers have the man and the woman together on the cover. But I have found you do, and I would say it runs with the readers. Like, you get some that are, kind of like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to read this because they see the Black woman. And I'm like, well, you'll read a werewolf, finding love with whoever, a Black woman, we want love too. It's not that different. So a lot of it's just trying to, not to say change the reader's mind, because my whole thing is, if you don't understand that I'm a human being and I want love just like you, I don't want you reading my book anyway. So I'm not out here trying to like force my book on somebody. Either you're gonna read it and enjoy it because it's a paranormal romance just like anybody else's, and the only difference is my character is Black and theirs is white. It's like, I can't help you, we're in 2020. Like, I'm not gonna stop, right, because I've been in a lot of talks with other authors about like that kind of thing. And it's like, I'm not going to stop putting a Black woman on the cover trying to trick you. Like, yes, do I have some covers where the guy might only appear in it, but that will be based on the fact of like, that's what works for that particular, like, for instance, with Wolf Shifters, it typically works when you have the bare-chested guy on the front. So yeah, those are going to have that. But for the most part, my books are going to keep rocking the Black woman on the cover. And like I said, I have plenty of white readers that enjoy it. I have plenty of Black readers that enjoy it. So for me, it's like, I'm going to write somewhat to trend or to the audience, but at the same time, when I have a good story, I'm going to tell it.
Okay, so what's next for Moni Boyce, and how can everybody stay connected to you?
Let's see, I'm all online. I'm a total social media junkie. So I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. So, and I also have my website, which is just moniboyce.com. And so on there, you can get access to all of my different social media channels. But on all of them, usually I'm just at Moni Boyce, just my name, with the exception of Facebook is Moni Boyce Writes is my author page. So yeah, but in terms of what's next, like I said, I have the Reverse Harem anthology with the other two authors that's coming up, another contemporary, and then I have a Christmas book that's with the Very Alpha Christmas group. There's about 17 of us. And so that book is All I Want for Christmas is an Alpha. So I've got two right now that are due out next month. And then, like I said, I have one other one, but I haven't set the date just yet. So, but that's my Mafia romance. So there's like 4 books before the end of the year.
Got a lot going on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask Nelena Kai, do you have anything else?
Well, actually, I'm loving the fact that she's in the industry in that way. And I can't wait to see some of her work on, more of her work on screen.
Oh, thank you.
And I was very awesome that when I reached out to you, to be a part of the cavalcade, you were like, yeah, sure. You know, and I love the picture that you sent. I love that it's in the circle. It was so beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
I also put up, I'm gonna put that picture up one more again. As, and let's put it here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You know, I'm a little, I've gained a little bit of weight over the years. And sometimes I remember going to this photographer and I was like, oh my God, I had all this anxiety because I was like, I got to be on camera and I got to, you know, put on makeup because I don't usually wear makeup either. And so I was feeling all sorts of ways about doing that photo shoot, and she just made me feel so at ease. There's just a difference in working with women sometimes. I felt like a guy would have tried to have me in and out and not really considering how I was feeling, because I was like literally on the verge of tears at one point. And she just like calmed me down and made me feel so at ease, and I loved that.
Yeah, that's a beautiful image of you. Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Love what you're doing, you know, Black romance, you know, admire the Harlequin authors, and that, you know, in the beginning that Harlequin, it was the blonde on the cover with the Fabio.
Yeah.
The Mary. You know, so now when it shifted to where we are on the covers, it was a beautiful thing to see. It was,
yeah, and that's what, you know, and coming from film, I keep reminding people representation matters, whether it's in books or it's on, you know, film. I was like, it matters so much.
Yes, it does. It does. I'm going to pass you back over to Christine for her to follow up and close you out.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. I look forward to talking to you.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to meet you. I had the opportunity to host you, and when I got well, I didn't have any information. I was surprised. I was like, it's really it was my first time. I had Reese Ryan, and now I was like, Moni Boyce. So I looked you up, and I
really new. So like for me too, I get a little like Reese. I got the pleasure to meet at one of the RWA conferences, and she was so gracious and kind and just like very sweet. Like I love her.
Indeed, indeed. Thanks.
Yes.
Really.
Thank you guys so much. I look forward to watching some of the other ones.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. You said your website.
Yes, go ahead.
My website is moniboyce.com. I'll just put it here in the
Okay, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But I also need to say it because we're recording.
Okay, so sorry. Yes, moniboyce.com.
Okay. Also, so anything you want us to know, you can drop it in. You can drop it there, but at least that one-stop shopping is the website.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's an awesome thing. So yes, indeed. Thanks again for stopping through. And we're going to, all you have to do is stop your video and you'll still be in the panelist queue, and you can still talk to the attendees and answer any questions that you missed. Because there were so many people firing off.
Yeah, I know. I was like, ooh, let me go. Okay, yeah, I'll go back now too. Thank you.
No problem. No problem. Okay. So we have our griot, today's griot for the African American community is in the house, and this is Daniel O. Black. And let me put up, hold on for a second. I've put in the work for this one. I want to be able to show all of your books when it comes time, but I'm going to turn this over to Stephanie. She has, when I say, she had a fangirl moment yesterday. She said she's not gonna have a fangirl moment this time. She's gonna actually have it all together, and we don't have to worry, but I'm just gonna see. But the tribe is here just in case. But she loves your work. So I'm gonna turn it over to her. And let's see here. One more second. The way the screen goes, if you don't have everything showing,